103.1 FM and streaming live at WVLP.org or on your TuneIn app. We are broadcasting live from the historic 1 Center Street building in beautiful Valparaiso, Indiana. The Bill and Callie Show is underwritten by Bill Moran and Callie Rosella. Now, here are Bill and Callie.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Bill and Kelly Show.
Hi, everybody.
This is Bill Moran and
Callie Rosella.
And we're very excited today because we kind of have a celebrity of Northwest.
Yes.
Yeah, don't feel ashamed. You are a celebrity.
Absolutely.
Just because you know some people we know, you're a very big celebrity. No. With us is Mark Roscoe, who is a prominent attorney in the area. And but what is intriguing to us, which is kind of an unusual combination, he is also a fashion designer, which we're going to get to how he got to that path and became one of the more well-known, at least as some stars that we know. And welcome to the show, Mark, and we're glad you can make it. We appreciate you being on the air with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So as we start out, what we always like to ask our guests to do, if they will tell us about themselves and maybe a little bit about where you're from and where you went to school.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Gary, Indiana, and have stayed a local boy all these years. Graduated from high school, Calumet High School, in 1976, many moons ago. And right?
I'm a 76er girl! Yay!
And then I attended Valparaiso University, where I obtained a bachelor's degree in psychology, and then went to their law school and graduated law school in 1983. After that, I found a position as a prosecutor, deputy prosecutor here in Porter County, and so I've made my home here since then.
Wow. So you started out in the prosecutor's office?
Correct.
Oh, okay. And was that under a friend of ours, Gary?
Actually, Gary had just left the position as prosecutor. He was in private practice. I actually worked under Dan Burning, but when I left the prosecutor's office in 1986, then I joined Gary's office in Portage, where I've been since 1986, practicing primarily in the area of family law and family law mediation.
Right. And that's something a lot of people, general person off the street, really don't understand. There's so many subcategories of the law practice.
Correct.
And yours is specifically family law, which relates to divorce, mediation between parties, trying to end out. So what drew you to that? Oh, I guess.
Yeah, ignore this.
That's right.
It happens every time.
Yeah, don't. This really isn't an emergency. Although some suspect that's because we're on the air that they put out an emergency broadcast.
It's a warning for everyone.
Go hide all the small children and animals. So again, let me rephrase that question. What drew you to, I guess, number one, practicing law, and number two, the sub-practice of family law?
Well, my bachelor's degree was in psychology, and so in the human element of family law as a practice of law was attractive to me because I enjoy human behavior and studying human behavior. And in the area of family law, it's all about human behavior and the dynamics of people as how they communicate, and especially in divorces, how they learn to terminate relationships. And so I was attracted to that area, and it kind of happened organically. I started off as a litigator in the area of family law, then transitioned into family law mediation, which is about 75% of my practice now. But for many years I was a litigator, and my dad used to come to my trials, and I had a highly contested divorce trial here in Porter County, and my dad was there for 3 days watching it. And I had a husband that I represented who really wasn't a good father, wasn't a good mate, and wasn't really a decent human being, but he was my client, and I had to present the facts as well as they could on his behalf. And after the trial, 3 days, the judge actually issued a ruling from the bench, and we prevailed on many of the issues that were presented. And I left the courtroom, and I said to my dad afterwards, well, how did I do? Just a proud son looking for some, validation from his father. And my dad looked at me and he said, this is not a proud moment. And I said, well, what are you talking about? He said, this is not about, your fancy car or your fancy clothes or, how well you performed in the dog and pony show you put on there. This is about trying to help a family. And he says, I don't see anything that you did to help this family heal through a very difficult time in their life. And he looked at me and he just walked away. And, at that point I realized that it was true. I mean, it wasn't about the game. It wasn't about the competition. It was really about helping people in a way that I wasn't doing at that point in time. And so at that point I decided to refocus my energies as a lawyer and went to mediation training. Judge Harper was instrumental in helping me out with that. And I started bringing people together in mediations, people going through divorces and trying to work out their issues in a more holistic way and in a healthier way, in a healing way, which oftentimes we lose in a courtroom where it's just locking horns and saying things that unfortunately we can't unsay. And so I found it to be a very healthy way of practicing law and getting people through very difficult times. And we've had people, because of that process and how effective it can be, actually reconciling their marriages, or at least learning how to co-parent, in a way that is more effective than at each other's throats. And so, thank you to my dad who redirected my course of my career.
So it's interesting. That was a pinnacle moment in your life.
Yeah,
your father
absolutely.
coming to you and saying, "Son, yeah, sure, you made money off this, but what about the people?"
Yeah.
And so you took a step back and re-looked at the situation, how you actually wanted to practice law, and refocused that. That's
Yeah.
great. So weren't the Wedding Crashers litigators, Vince Vaughn?
Don't remember that part.
You're not a wedding crasher, are
I am
you?
not a wedding
Okay.
crasher.
Well, you could easily.
Although I do know Vince's mom, Shay. She's one of our clients.
Well, there you go.
All right. Well, I just had to make sure, because if this man shows up at your wedding and you look at the list, did we invite Mark? Just let him in.
just
He's
let
a
him
good
in.
guy.
Yes, he's a good guy.
So that's interesting. So, gosh, in the process, litigating, I mean, and this is prior to the actual getting to the magistrate where the divorce is sent.
Correct.
So you sit down with and do the whole 50-50 and make sure that there's an agreement on the house and so on.
Sure.
And which is stressful in itself because these parties, logic has to go out the window. It's heated, it's emotional.
Yeah, it's a very emotional time, especially in divorce situations, because what you're really going through is you're mourning the loss of what you thought your life would be, and so there's a death that you're actually mourning, and so it's not just about dividing the beans. It's about getting through a difficult time with especially if one person didn't want it, or there was infidelity involved, or there was child abuse, or there's a whole array of circumstances that are brought to the table that affect how people respond to it, and it's about teaching people to understand that you can get through a difficult time without being antagonistic or sarcastic or hurtful to each other. Things don't always work out the way we want them to be, but there's a way to dissolve that and to move on in a healthier way. Especially if you have to continue to co-parent children, you still have to communicate. So you're really never divorced from each other, and getting people to understand that what we're doing here today is really going to affect the relationship that you have with each other for years to come as you co-parent children and attend family functions such as weddings and anniversaries and birthday parties and things of those nature. So we want to make sure that we kind of keep this family in a healthier place than to allow it to unravel as it often does when you walk into a courtroom. So the courts in Porter County and Lake County are requiring cases to go to mediation if you're going to require 2 hours or at least a half day of court time. And so it really forces people to sit down and try to get things resolved, because there's nothing that is magic when you walk into a courtroom. You totally give up your life to the magistrate, and although we have very competent magistrates here in Porter County and in Lake County, you are letting someone else dictate your life and determine your life path versus taking control over it. So it's a very empowering experience to allow people to realize, you have control, you can make positive choices even though you didn't make them in your marriage. We can teach you how to make them, as you leave this marriage and be able to move on in a healthier way.
And I've grown to appreciate this practice, because there's a lot of other things having to do with children, if they're minors specifically.
Sure.
There's whole issues that have to be set up with going to training, parent training, and how to deal with that. So But the one thing that, as you're talking, it popped up on mine, you act on your client's behalf, but the other thing you have to do and make sure that that both parties are not going to get harmed is you also have to deal with their legal representation.
Correct.
And that can't always go well because that could be adversarial, I would imagine.
Well, it's interesting when you enter into a mediation room, even though you're entering in with your attorney, the attorneys, although advocating on your behalf, have to kind of change their hats, knowing that they're there to help get this resolved. And so we are blessed in Porter County to have, and even in Lake County, to have a wonderful family law bar that understands the purpose of mediation is to get things resolved, not to get everything you want for your client, but to look at a much greater picture to realize what does this family need, what is the court more inclined to do when these cases are presented. And so we have attorneys in this area who are able to shift gears and become part of that healing process versus as an advocate and as an antagonist sometimes. So. But it's hard, when you get these young, zealous attorneys who watch a lot of Alley Law and some of the other programs who think that it's all about the fight, and it's educating them that it's not about. It's about doing what's right for mankind, for this family, and that they have that responsibility as advocates to do that.
Okay, enough of legal stuff.
Yeah.
I think we're churning some people's stomachs up there, bringing back memories of divorces.
No,
and
it's
just
a good thing.
Yeah,
a healthy thing.
But
that part is, but not everybody has that.
True.
Let's talk about why we invited you to talk about your fashion design,
yes.
And which is kind of exciting because as we're going through the website, and I'll share this story later as we show the picture. As Kelly could tell you, I'm lucky to know famous actors and actresses. Kelly knows their third removed cousins. Like, someone will be on, that's so-and-so's cousin, or he
that
used to be
person's married
by
to so-and-so, and he's
it's
like, I don't care. And I'm like
like
but that's interesting.
She verbally draws a gene map how these people are related. And I'm like, blah, 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 who cares? But I know she does. But at any rate, why don't you begin telling us how a lawyer decides that they want to get into fashion design?
Well, it kind of happened organically for me. I had been in the industry for many years. I was a model for many years in Chicago, put myself through law school doing that, and also an actor. And then I owned a casting agency in Chicago with my sister and a friend of mine, and we did the extras castings for movies that were filmed in Chicago. A lot of John Hughes films, Oliver Stone films, Julia Roberts and David Schwimmer. And so, my exposure to the business had been over a period of 20, 30 years. And then I was always interested in fashion, but my law practice consumed the majority of my time. But my mom had difficulty finding clothes. She was a plus-size woman, and she had difficulty in finding clothes that fit her, and it used to break my heart every time she would come home empty-handed from a shopping trip, in tears. And
they would fit her, and they weren't attractive.
Exactly.
At all.
And unfortunately, designers at that point in time were, treating that sect of our community as, lose your weight and you'll look good, and here,
not everybody
put
wants
this
to wear a
fabric on.
caftan and a
Exactly.
muumuu.
Put this fabric on and be happy that you're covered. And so, so there's a correlation between looking good and feeling good, and then how you then turn around and treat your body and the respect that you have for your body. And so I thought, I have the abilities to correct this. So I purchased a sewing machine, and I taught myself how to sew, and I started making clothes for my mom. And as she started feeling better about herself, she started taking better care for herself. And so our brand kind of grew organically from there, because other women and men also realized that they too could be the best that they can be and look the best they can by having custom garments made for them. And so that's how we started generating business through the work that I was doing for my mom. And from there, it has just kind of blossomed on its own.
Wow, that's amazing and also heartwarming. That so you really started your career out in fashion design with your mom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still true today. I mean, especially the men's. I've gained like 30 pounds over the past couple of years, and holy moly! Especially new designs.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we've talked about that about James Coburn, how he looks really bad in these new style suits.
Sometimes.
Well,
yeah.
a lot of the new styles, especially the more Italian, European looks are made for smaller frames. Guys that are 38s and 40 regulars, and men of our stature.
Oh, I'm glad you included
well,
of
I
our
totally
stature.
included that.
Yeah,
When we start wearing garments that look so small and are so tightly fitted, it looks like we just purchased a garment that wasn't made for us because of our size. We should go out size up. And so that looks really great on a small frame where weight isn't an issue. But, with anyone, it's just finding it's architecture. It's finding the right silhouette that drapes nicely over your body and camouflages the areas that we want to, that we don't want to reveal, and accentuating those that are positives of our body. And so that's what we do. When people come into, our studio, there's a process that we go through with respect to how we design for them, but it's really about finding out who they are, who the core of them is, and then kind of designing from the inside out and finding the right silhouette and the right personality that fits who they are.
Yeah. So as we move on, I mean, you started out designing for people, but then you got it involved in charities, and one specifically that we hold near and dear to our heart because we have a common friend that we love dearly, Sandy Goldberg. And so can you tell us how you got involved with Silver Lining Foundation and Sandy?
Well, my mom died of cancer about 12 years ago. She had several bouts of cancer, starting with uterine to kidney cancer, and then she also ultimately succumbed to pancreatic cancer. And so I always wanted to give back in a way that we could in helping charities or families who are going through similar situations. And so I met Sandy Goldberg through a friend of mine, Brenda Arellano, who was a makeup artist in Chicago, and talked to me about Sandy's organization and wanted to know whether I was willing to donate one of our garments for their silent auction for the gala that they have every year, and I absolutely agreed to that. And so that year the garment went for $5,000 or $6,000, and so the proceeds went directly to a Silver Lining. And so we've been participating with Silver Lining for the last 5 years, and Sandy and I now do a show at the Peninsula Hotel in the spring. So they have their fall gala, which ironically is this coming weekend.
Yes, it is.
And then we have our show in the spring where I bring together 10 designers at the Peninsula Hotel, and all the proceeds are raised to benefit a Silver Lining. And the show is underwritten by Americ Jewelry, who funds the entire event.
Oh, wow.
And so it's truly 100% of all the ticket sales and auction sales that goes to help a Silver Lining, which raises money to help women and men pay for mammograms and other diagnostic testing who can't otherwise afford it. So we could avoid the development of this horrible disease. So it's been a nice marriage between Sandy and me, and she's now recently moved to Valparaiso with her husband Greg. Yeah.
I did not know that.
They moved. They're right off of.
Don't say that on the radio because she's
they're
got
they're
there's
north of
stalkers
town.
out there. Okay,
And
there
so
you go.
it's nice to have her around, and she's become family to me, and
Wow.
so it's nice to have dinner with her and kind of hang out with her.
Well,
we love her.
in fact, when we first invited her on, she was, we could visit my good friend Mark Roscoe, and that's when first person I found out. Then as one thing came to the next, she says, his office is in Portage. He has a law practice in Portage, and wow, okay, that made the connection with my other friend
Right,
Gary. So
it's a small world.
Small world. I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about Sandy, and then we'll move on and show your slideshow, because what she does is. Her history is amazing, absolutely amazing, and I just want to talk to people, and you interject any time.
Absolutely.
But we've had her on the show, and she told her story about how she went to school, and her interest was in dietary concerns and so on, and so she actually at one point lost 180 pounds.
Correct.
That's like a human being, which is amazing in itself to put yourself in. But she said she wanted to get healthy, and that's what her goal in life was. But then she actually got a spot on NBC, I believe, at the time.
Yes.
And I always remembered watching, because her her mannerisms remind me of Mom. You know, it's not like a dietitian giving you statistics. And I remember her two phrases, and she was embarrassed when I brought them up. And it was, she'd always start off with, well, you know, and, you know, in a very motherly way.
Yeah.
Or, I got to tell you. That's her other catchphrase. And then she would go on and tell you about how your portions should be equal and balanced. And really, when it comes down to it, her whole thing. So, but the thing is that at a certain point in her career, she was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yeah.
And
Stage 4.
you know, stage 4 breast cancer, and at that time she worked for NBC. Went to see her producer, and the producer said, "This is a very important thing. Probably, would you mind having us film it, and we could do a documentary?" So Sandy, and my gosh, that has got to be grueling. Made the conscious decision to say yes, and so literally a film crew followed her around during her battle with cancer, and that is amazing in itself. And out of that was born the Silver Lining Foundation. I mean, I'm jumping a bunch of steps, I'm sure. And the Silver Lining Foundation is a foundation that's put together that does several things. It's one of them is education about breast cancer in both male and female. And the other portion is to provide funding to people who are either underinsured or uninsured so that they can go in and get a mammogram, which is very, very important, catching cancer at the right stage.
And even getting rights to their chemo and all of those things that are so important.
Then she developed relationships with, I believe it was 18 or 20 hospitals in the Chicago area on providing mammograms
and
for these people and services for these people. Absolutely amazing. And then they have the thing like the gala that all the proceeds go to the Silver Lining, which then goes on. Absolutely amazing, amazing woman. And so that's, I just want to give people a background. And you'll remember Sandy, if you're back in, I think it was the 80s and the 90s, she would be on NBC, and again, she appeared to be the motherly figure and talk like the motherly figure, and that's how I remembered her.
She's a great lady, and I really like how accessible she is.
Oh,
you know,
very.
I've had a couple. We have a young girl that we were contacted by her art teacher. Her name is Jasmine Taylor. She's a delightful young lady. She had just graduated, or was graduating high school, and I was contacted by her art teacher, who indicated that Jasmine had been suffering from cancer, that she had just finished chemotherapy, that she was in remission, and wanted to go to the prom. And so we agreed to make her prom dress for her. And then I had her walk in my show at the Peninsula as one of my models with Sandy down the runway. And Sandy has just, kind of reached out to this young girl and, has kind of kept in touch with her and make sure she's doing okay. And she is out of remission, unfortunately, and she's, kind of struggling with the disease again. But Sandy is just so accessible to Jasmine and to her family and to other people that we've referred her to.
Yes.
I mean, there are some celebrities who just do this to, for the just the face of it, and then they wash their hands. But she's in the trenches daily, dealing with people who are afraid and don't have the resources, and it really turns your family upside down. And she's truly there to help people for no personal gain. I mean, she just has devoted her life to this, and that's what I love about her.
Yeah, and a part of that story is that one of the centers was named after her mother.
Yes.
And that was the tearful moment when we had her on the show telling about that. Bringing that up still brings a tear to her eye.
Oh, yeah.
Sandy, if you're listening out there, please know we all love you.
We do. We love you so much.
There's a Sandy love fest going on right now.
Absolutely.
So, with that, talking about Sandy, one key factor of Sandy, although she's a sweet lady, if you do something wrong to make her mad, she'll let you know.
Yes.
And I'm going to equate the same thing to our station manager. If I don't do a station break,
yes, I was just going to say.
Same thing. So allow us about a minute to do a station break, and we'll be right back with our guest, Mark Roscoe.
You are listening to The Bill and Callie Show on WVLP LP 103.1 FM and streaming live at WVLP.org or on your TuneIn app. We are broadcasting live from the historic 1 Center Street building in beautiful Valparaiso, Indiana. The Bill and Callie Show is underwritten by Bill Moran and Callie Rosala. Now, here are your hosts, Bill and Callie. Herrick?
No.
All right, we're back with you. Welcome back. Where were we?
We were talking about Sandy.
Oh, can I forget?
That was just a minute ago, Bill.
Yeah, really. I'm worried.
Yeah. Okay, everyone. No, some people don't give a rat's about me, but
Okay.
so yeah, Sandy. So and we'll see some of your designs here in just a minute. In fact, now may be appropriate time
Yes, I was gonna say,
to
let me
go
scoot
through
over
some of
so
these
you can look at
designs.
these beautiful pictures. I'm gonna
And for those of you who are joining us on Facebook Live, you're going to get a treat here. And so we'll just share the microphone here and just go ahead and let us know what we're looking at here.
Oh, this is B.B. King's daughter. We were at an event in Chicago, and she came and sat in my lap and sang Jingle Bells. She's quite a personality. She's
Kind of like a Marilyn Monroe type
she is.
thing there.
She is. Took me by surprise.
Okay, and this is I've got to stop. Okay, so I'll tell a story here. So, people know me. I try to investigate as much as possible before I have a guest on. And so Kelly and I are at home, and I'm in the office doing some investigative work on Mark's website. And, people know this about me. I just don't know stars. I don't.
Let's just say the little girl squeal that came out of that office from this man is ridiculous.
Little girl squeal. Okay. I started screaming, Kelly, you gotta come here and see this. And what? Look who he is in a picture with. Captain Kirk.
William Shatner.
William Shatner. I just recognize him as Captain Kirk. He may go by another name, but yes, William Shatner.
It's interesting. We attended an Oscar party a couple years ago, and William Shatner and his wife Elizabeth were also in attendance, and so we got to meet him and spend some time with him. He also wears some of our neckwear, and great people. And it's that was really one of my first exposures to celebrity. And when you get to see these people out, off stage, outside the camera, they're just ordinary people. They're struggling to make it through life. They have different issues that we may have, but they, like my dad used to say, they put their pants on the same way in the morning and they take them off the same way at night, and they're just really quality people. So it was really nice to meet, because both Elizabeth and him, there was no level of arrogance or condescension, and it was a pleasure to spend some time with them.
I can imagine one of his favorite characters outside of Captain Kirk was the character on Boston Legal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was just absolutely funny
Outstanding man.
stuff. Yes.
And quite a career.
Yes, and Captain Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's go on here.
This is Tommy Dreesen. Tommy Dreesen is from Chicago, and he is an amazing comedian. In fact, he just had a golf outing in Chicago last week, and he was in town. He wears some of our neckwear, and he was the longest-running guest host on the Johnny Carson show, and used to open up for Frank Sinatra in Vegas for many years.
And he was good friends with Jerry Lewis, because
Yes.
he was always on the telethon, I remember.
Yeah, and that whole Rat Pack.
Yes.
Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. I mean, those were all of his friends. So the stories that he has to share with those are pretty amazing. Yeah.
I'm glad you guys know all this, because I just want to go back to the previous
Yeah, I
picture
know
and
you do.
expound on it.
You can go home and kiss it later.
Yeah.
Well, I did already. All right.
This is one of the gowns that we, again, for the show for a Silver Lining that I did last March, and so this is one of our models who modeled in the show. So this is from our Make a Statement collection. Same thing. The series of pictures are just, kind of representative of the type of work that we do. It's all, again, custom work. They're one-of-a-kind pieces. And so once I create a garment and I use a particular fabric, I typically don't reuse it, nor do I recreate that silhouette for anyone else. And so when you leave our studio, you have a one-of-a-kind piece, never having to worry about walking into an event and seeing someone else in the same garment.
Guys don't have that fear. I could give a rat's about if someone shows up with the same suit that I do. In fact, I'd pity them, actually, because it's nothing special.
Well, suits are pretty generic. I mean,
Yeah.
you change the look with a shirt, a tie, and a pocket square. But for women, it's
How
part of
compelling.
Sure. I mean, it's a statement piece, and so the last thing they want to do is to walk into an event and see someone in the same garment and wearing it better than them. Real short story. We did an event for a woman in Chicago, or in Indiana, whose daughter was getting married in Ohio, and I went out to Ohio and I made her garment and dressed her out there. And so the night before, we were talking about with some of the guests, why it's important to do custom work, just to make sure that when you attend a special event that you don't walk in and see someone. So these three women that were talking to me, all from Valparaiso and all friends, said, but it just seems like kind of an extravagant. How often does that really happen? I said, well, when it happens and you're out of town, it's really difficult to find something to replace it when your closet's
Sure.
right not in the next room. So the next day at the wedding, those three women, who were friends, who traveled from Valparaiso, all showed up in the
in the
exact
same dress.
garment. They sat in the same pew.
That's
At the church. They
hilarious.
sat at the same table, and it was kind of. And they were all great friends, and they all took it very well. But point served.
Yes,
this is
of
why.
course.
And they ended up taking pictures with the bridal party as if they were part of the bridal party because they all looked the same. So the benefits of doing custom work.
That's great. Now, what I really loved, looking at all of the dresses and things that you've designed, none of them are what I would consider trendy. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean
No.
that in the fact that they're all so classic, they're all so elegant.
Thank you.
They're all something that you could wear down the road forever and still be gorgeous and on point and just
Well, and that's the
fantastic.
goal, is to create timeless classic pieces that you can keep in your wardrobe and wear to an event this year and still be relevant 5 years when you put it on.
Exactly.
This is a dress that we did this is Joanne Ficori, who's a model in Chicago, and she's also my publicist. But this is a dress that I created for Alice Amter from A Big Bang Theory for the Emmys a couple years ago. So she wore that to the Emmys. This is a dress that I created for Ani Gogova. Ani is a concert pianist in Chicago, and she was performing at Carnegie Hall. And so Brian Atwood designed the shoe, and then I designed the dress around the shoe for Ani to wear on stage for her debut performance at Carnegie Hall last year.
It's stunning.
Thank you.
Oh, I love that color.
Yeah, this is one of our house models, Sahira. She's a Chicago model, absolutely beautiful, and she
Yes,
wears
she
our
is.
clothes very well. That's her again. This is the dress that we did for, boy, her name escapes me, for the Grammy Awards a couple years ago. That's still part of our collection that Zahira again wears very well. It's a leather and lace. The bodice is lace with Swarovski crystals. There's probably 200 Swarovski crystals on the bodice and also on the trim around the leather skirt. And this is just showing a range, from day to evening. That transitions well. If you could wear this to the office and still attend a nice cocktail party in the early evening, or even wear it well into the evening at a formal event. I like doing floral appliques, instead of a one-dimensional floral print on a fabric. These are actual little florets that are created that are actually, each one has a diamond and a pearl in it. And so it gives the dress a more three-dimensional look to it.
Yes, gorgeous.
Same thing, this is a Venetian lace. It's kind of a heavier lace. It's kind of hard to read in this picture, but it's same thing on top. The bodice is the black florets with sequins and bugle
Looks
beads.
like it's beaded, yes.
Mhm.
It looked like bugle beads.
I like different textures. Again, you're not going to find a lot of printed fabric in my collection. The fabrics are, the richness of the fabric comes with the woven. The prints are woven into. This is a silk organza
Like a tapestry almost.
Exactly. This is a garment that we did for Silver Lining or the runway show in March of last year. This was actually worn and made for Dr. Sandy Goldberg.
Oh, it's more of a pantsuit, right?
Yeah.
It's because pantsuits are hot
Yeah.
for women right now.
Exactly. And this is a tribal look. It's a sequined tribal top, and it has, you can't see, but the sides are cut out and the back is fully exposed, and so it's And again, this is a garment that was made for a woman who has more of a full-figured woman. It's kind of a swing dress, so it's very forgiving with respect to the silhouette and hides a lot of flaws, and
Yes.
so it's still very elegant. I like to do classic tailored pieces. This is an Italian pleated skirt that we created over a beaded top that has an organza sleeve and a ruffled cuff. Again, it can be dressed up or dressed down. You could take the top off and wear it with a pair of jeans, or pair it with what we've done here, the skirt or pair of slacks.
Picture Sophia Loren in that for
exactly.
some reason.
Yeah. Kind of the same thing, just pieces that can be worn during the day to the office and then transition, to cocktails after work and or to even a formal event. Formal doesn't mean anymore wearing a gown or something long, and so the short mini skirt could be, with the right fabric and the right cut, can be a still very formal piece for an event.
That coat is divine.
This is a coat we designed a couple years ago for a show in Chicago. It's actually a lace overlay, and it has the Persian lamb sleeve and collar to it. It's kind of a swing coat. It just has a button on the neckline, and it's kind of free-flowing.
Oh, it's
Kind of has like a
phenomenal.
60s style to
Oh,
it.
it's just elegant, classic, divine.
Yeah, and this, I brought this just to show, the different sleeve treatments. There's so many things that you could do with fabric and sleeves, and oftentimes the fabric that we use dictates the creation, the garment that we actually create. This is a young girl, so she kind of wanted a lot of movement in the garment. She was actually very animated herself, and so it was kind of fun to play with it and mesh it with her personality. This is a garment. We did the costume design for a movie called Dreams I Never Had, starring Malcolm McDowell
Yes, I saw that.
and Robin Givens and Iyad Hajij. And so this is a garment that we did for one of the leads in the show. A twist on a bride. It's kind of a Audrey Hepburn-esque look for maybe a second wedding. Or even just white is not always for weddings anymore. It's also a nice formal look for a black tie event. This is a real neat piece that we did for a show in Chicago.
Yeah,
it's
that's hot.
it's the silk charmeuse slack, kind of a high-waisted slack, and a beaded jacket that is just totally beads. It's kind of a see-through, real sexy look. Has one button right underneath the bust line and kind of makes a statement. This was appeared in a music video in LA. The artist's name escapes me. Nice holiday look. Again, the bodice is made with these little paillettes. They're little circles of silk that are sewn on individually, and kind of creates dimension to the garment. This is kind of that old world Anne Bancroft kind of look.
Yes.
It's hard to tell, but the sequins in this garment are actually on their sides, and they're stacked, and it looks like Persian lamb. And I had it actually hand beaded when I visited India. We designed the fabric, and they made it while we were there. So, yeah, so it's truly a one-of-a-kind piece. There's no one else in the world who has this garment made out of this fabric. This is a piece that we did for an ad for our men's neckwear. Greg and Netta, two of our house models that represent our brand.
Which your neckwear in of itself is a line. A lot of, you know,
Yes.
besides suits, you just have a.
And we're actually starting, I've partnered with another designer in Chicago. His name is Eli Soto. He's
Oh,
actually,
yeah, I saw the picture of him.
So in the spring of next year, we'll be revealing at the Silver Lining event our new men's collection. It's a little
We're going
edgier.
next year.
Yeah.
We're saving up.
It's a really good. The tickets are very reasonably priced for the show, and so it's a nice luncheon. But the menswear is going to be presented in a much different flavor next season. These are again just kind of timeless, classic looks. This is an event. This is a dress that. Oh, what is her name? She's one of the stars in.
I have the same problem, but with
Yeah.
all the stars.
Yeah, she's a soap star. She wore that to the inaugural ball this year. Yeah. So these are just, again, samples of just kind of timeless classic looks, showing different necklines, different waistlines, again.
See Emmy Rossi in that.
Yeah. And this is, for even a full-figured woman, who has, a larger hip line. This is a very forgiving garment that
Accentuates the waist and kind of hides the hips.
Absolutely.
I'm all about that.
I like leather and lace, and it's kind of the good girl, bad girl
Yep.
kind of feel. And so this has a very Ralph Lauren look to it, but yeah, it's a nice piece on the right silhouette. This is our signature piece. This was actually my inaugural piece that appeared in our brand video that we won the Emmy Award for. And this is Netta, and this was shot at the Drake Hotel, and this has become kind of our signature look.
So just stopping there just a minute, I've heard you say you won an Emmy Award. So there's a category for dress. Wow.
Yeah. For commercials.
Okay, all right.
This is kind of a peplum, look, again, a
I
madman
love the
kind of feel.
Yes, I love the peplum.
The peplum is removable. I often pair it, when you remove the peplum, then we pair it with a leather belt, and it has a totally different
Yes,
look.
it does.
Yeah.
You like that, Kelly?
Oh, yes, please. I want that look
Maybe
back
to
where you wear
need
the
it
gloves
next
and
year?
you have the handbag that matches your shoes, and you wear a hat. That's my
Maybe
era.
Edith when you win the award for Best Actress.
Yeah, next time I win Best
That's right.
Actress,
You have our
I'll
number.
yes.
This is just another sample of, just the different textures. The bottom, the skirt is a mesh. The top is an Indian beaded fabric, and then we took a church vestment fabric and created the shawl and beaded it, and used the design of the Orthodox vestment as the trim for the shawl.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. This is pretty sexy.
Yes, it
Cannot be
is.
worn in reverse, so it's.
Well, it could be, but you'd be arrested, so.
But it would give you a lot of exposure.
That's right.
Literally and figuratively, yes.
This is a feather garment that we created for one of our shows in
Something
DC.
about a nice slit and then the backless.
And it is. I mean, I think that sexy could be done in a very tasteful way. It's not about
Absolutely.
how much you reveal, it's about how it's revealed.
Exactly.
And, that she was totally fully covered in the front. She had this, like you said, a nice back slit, and her back was exposed, but in a very tasteful way.
That's
So
right.
it wasn't offensive at
Sexier
all.
when you have to imagine what's under
Right,
all that instead
exactly.
of seeing it all.
You don't have to tell the whole story. Yeah. This is Irene Michaels. Irene is an actress. She was one of the stars of General Hospital many years ago, and she
remember her.
is the head of Eye on the Scene, which is a company in Chicago that she created. And she's also married to Arnie Granite, who is a producer in Chicago, was formerly with Jam Productions, and is one of the producers of Hamilton and The Band's Visit that just won 10 Tony Awards. And so we designed for both of them. Again, just another sample of kind of a timeless classic look. It's a little sexier. It's a little younger look.
Yes,
It's
yes.
kind of a midriff, which with the right age, it's a nice
In
wear
my
to
brain,
a summer,
I am that age. That's
to
the
summer
problem.
wedding. Yeah.
I still look at that and go, I could pull that.
Cool.
No, I
That maybe
couldn't.
not.
I could never pull that off.
all of these pictures that you see have been shot by either Dan DeVerney in Chicago or Ernest Collins, and this is one of the pieces that we just recently shot. Ernest, both of them are very remarkable photographers,
Yes.
And this is part of our
See,
most
I
recent
love
collection. And what's nice with this,
Sorry.
that's fine, we're going to pair that with a long skirt. We're doing the Emmy Awards
Oh,
this year, so we're
beautiful.
dressing all of the presenters at the Emmys, the Chicago Emmys this year, and so
Nice.
that
Oh,
will
wow.
be repurposed and be more appropriate for stage. This was a dress that we did for the Cannes Film Festival this year. An actress from New York contacted us. She had just finished a Broadway play and was going to be one of the presenters for one of the Cannes Film Festival presentations. And so we made this, and it was actually seen and photographed and appeared on television at the Cannes Film Festival.
I don't doubt that at all.
This is my sister.
Oh, how lovely.
This is a dress we made for her son's wedding.
Oh, that's a perk.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah.
you know, mother of the
Having a brother
bride,
who can do that.
you
Hello.
can wear, or mother of the groom, you can wear black, and so it was kind of a little sophisticated twist to the black dress.
Oh, there-
And then we're back to the beginning.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, my goodness.
And perfect
So
timing. Gosh, we're
phenomenal.
running right on time here.
Yeah.
That's unusual for us,
All right,
Kelly.
back.
Yep. Just a second. And
Just want to make sure I've got the camera back where it needs to go. Yep. I
there
do.
we go.
Excellent.
The good-looking guy in the room.
That's right.
Why'd you agree so fast?
Just saying.
One of the pictures that we didn't show that I'm kind of proud of is we dressed Keegan-Michael Key from Key and
Oh.
Peele.
I saw that.
No,
I
that's fine.
apologize.
No.
Snap of
I
that
just
yesterday, and it's
just kind of,
phenomenal.
Actually, for those of you who saw the show promo that we did, that picture we used in the promo. So
Okay.
if you want to look at it,
And go to his
Go to
Facebook page too.
Facebook page.
Great guy.
Yes.
It was an honor and a pleasure to dress him.
Yeah. So, wow. So, as I'm going through all these, all your work is customized towards the person. So, what is that process? How much do you look into their personality, or what?
Well, oftentimes we're meeting people for the first time, especially if they're not local people and I don't have a relationship with them. So people will contact us, women will contact us, men will contact us and say that they are going to an event in the spring and this is the role they're playing in the event. And so that kind of governs, kind of the look. If they're just a guest or whether there's CEO and they're on stage, it kind of dictates the look of the garment. The season of the garment, the venue, the time of day kind of governs what the ultimate look is. But as we get to know them through the process of designing, because I actually make the patterns on your body, and so it's a very intimate process, and so you really get to know people, and as you get to know them and get into their lives and kind of their insecurities, especially with body images, we start to formulate a different look, sometimes different than what we even started with. And as they become more comfortable, realizing that they can look beautiful regardless of how they perceive themselves or whatever challenges that may, because we deal with a lot of women who have had mastectomies or have curvatures of the spine, and it's difficult to find clothes. And so when they realize that all of that can be camouflaged, it's that kind of governs ultimately what the look of the
Right.
garment is, just by spending more time with them.
Well, with that, we're going to have to start wrapping up the show.
No!
Unfortunately, we could spend probably another
we get you
hour
back
easily.
another Sure. time?
I'm
Yes,
local. I'll come
please.
back.
Sandy.
We'll get both of them
Yeah,
together.
we'll tag team
That
you.
would be phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, hey, boy. So with that, Mark, we can't tell you how much we appreciate you
Oh, it's
being
my
our
pleasure.
guest today.
Yes.
And
My pleasure.
those of you, this will be available for viewing, at the Bill and Kelly Show. Plus, Mark has it up on his Facebook page. So, Mark, again, we wish you a great week and
Thank you.
great designing.
I'm
And
looking forward to seeing snaps from this Saturday too of the
maybe
different things that are gonna be
someday
there.
you'll be designing stuff for
You
us
never
at the
know.
Emmys.
I would
You
I would
never
love
know.
to do that. You have my number.
Well, if we ever get the call,
When I win my Tony.
That's
someday.
right.
Tony. With that, folks, we wish you a great week and a great weekend. We appreciate you tuning in today and listening to our awesome guest and showing off his awesome designs.
Yes,
Those are
beautiful.
just beautiful designs. And with that, we wish you a goodbye, and we will see you this time next week.
Or tune in tonight at 7 o'clock while we're at Wild Rose Brewing,
Exactly.
or tomorrow from SIP at 1 o'clock.
With that, we
now
say
we
goodbye.
can say goodbye. Bye, everybody. You have been listening to The Bill and Callie Show on WVLP LP 103.1 FM and streaming live at WVLP.org or on your TuneIn app.